Chapter 18, September 22nd. Clayton out for his morning jog. Florence had been working at Berta's Cafe for over a month now, and I still couldn't find work. We moved into this ratty old apartment, which if you ask me is not fit for neither man nor beast to live in. Insects of every kind lived in it, from cockroaches to spiders and everything else in between. Oh, don't let me forget about the huge rats that have decided to move in along with us. We've had bed bugs twice, which means right now we have zero furniture and are sleeping on the floor and eating our meals on our laps. Our superintendent is a world-class ass who always says he'll get around to our apartment, and he never does. We can't apply for government assistance because Florence works, and according to the government, once you work, you're not eligible to get any assistance. I'm looking for work online every day, and every job I find I go to the interview hopeful, but either I don't get the job because it's already been taken, or I'm over or underqualified for it. All the money that Florence makes from the cafe goes to our rent and our food. After that, there is basically nothing left. With all the stress we are under, my nightmares are coming back, and the attacks are getting worse. They come with this paralyzing fear that is 100 times worse than it ever was. Now my panic attacks come with invisible fingers that seem to clamp over my mouth, and a coldness that makes my body go still. And the voices I hear when they're happening are deep and calling to me, and no matter how hard I try, it doesn't seem that I can break free. The only light in my life right now is my wife. She has been absolutely amazing through everything, never complaining when she has to work a double shift, always having a supportive word when I need to be encouraged, and most of all, being there when my panic attacks are at their worst. As usual, I passed by the school on my jog. I don't know why I insist on punishing myself. There are other routes I could take, but for some reason, I think deep down, I feel I deserve these attacks. As usual, when the school bell rang, my heart started pounding and my breathing became ragged. The voices started beckoning me to give up. I looked down and saw the bodies of the kids again. I grabbed onto the tree. Vaguely, I noticed a car pull up beside me. "Is that you, Clayton?" a familiar voice called. "Are you all right?" And then I heard a car door open and saw Rev. Dennis get out of his car and come over to me by the tree. I tried to speak, but no words would come out. Through my panic, I did hear him say, "Clayton, it's Reverend Dennis. You're going to be okay. I'm right here. I'm not going to leave you." Then he took the hand that wasn't holding on to the tree and squeezed it hard. The loving pressure of his hand made the attack easier to get through. After what seemed like hours, but was probably only a few minutes, my heart began to slow again, and the grass turned green again, and slowly everything turned back to normal. When I could finally see and form words, I turned to Reverend Dennis. "Thanks," I said, smiling, a little shaky. "No problem. Are you all right? Do you need a ride somewhere?" I looked up at the sky. It looked like it was about to rain. My jog was just about over, and I didn't feel like running all the way to my apartment. "If you wouldn't mind dropping me back home, that would be great." "I would love to." I walked over to the passenger side of Reverend Dennis's car and got in. After I closed the door on the driver's side, he started the car and we drove for a few minutes in silence. Then he said, "Do you mind if I ask about your PTSD? I assume that's what it is, or am I wrong?" I shook my head. "That's what the doctors say I have, a mild form of PTSD. From what I just saw there, I gather you're not doing too well in dealing with it." I gave a laugh. "You can say that again. What's been going on since the wedding? The last time I saw you in Florence, you were so happy. Are you having marital troubles, son? I know these are personal questions, son, but I've known you and Florence since you were kids, and I just want to help. If I'm overstepping, please let me know, but what I saw back there was very serious and it scared me. And when something scares me, I don't believe in mincing words, especially when it's about someone I deeply care for." I was silent for a full minute before saying, "My marriage to Florence is fine. She's probably the only good thing in my life right now. I married the most amazing, gracious woman in the world. She's probably the only reason I am standing here right now. For reasons I'd rather not get into right now, both Florence's parents and my parents didn't agree with our marriage. The apartment we were living in was owned by my father. He evicted us, and now we're living in an apartment that is worse than anything I've ever seen. I've been looking for work, but I can't find anything right for me. Florence is working at a cafe, but the money she's making just covers our rent and bills. The stress is getting to me, and I used to have panic attacks, but they were manageable. Now, as you saw, I can barely get through them. I would talk to a counselor, but I'm so ashamed and I don't want to go on any medication. Honestly, Rever, I'm at the end of my rope. I just feel like giving up. Then Revzer Dennis did a surprising thing. He pulled over on the side of the road and gave me his full attention. I've been through something similar, son. I was never in the war, but I grew up in a household of hell. My father used to drink every day and beat my mother and I until we were often both unconscious. I begged her to leave him several times, but she never did. When I was 21, I came home to find him on top of her, beating her to a pulp. All the years of rage and anger had built up in me, and without thinking I pulled my mother off him and beat him up until the life was drained out of him. I spent the next 20 years in jail for my father's murder, and at that time I was angry, so full of rage that I can't even describe it to you. Inside of me was so much pain and hurt, I was like a volcano ready to erupt. The prisoners were all afraid of me. I walked around like a big shot, like I knew everything and no one could tell me anything. I was in solitary confinement more times than I could count. They moved me from a minimum security to a maximum security prison, and that didn't even stop me. I was 41 years old when I got out of prison, but still was angry at anything, still as messed up as anyone could ever be. I thought that life couldn't have anything better for me than to go back to jail. I couldn't find a job. I didn't have a wife. My mother wouldn't speak to me. It was just a mess. At this part of the story, Rever Dennis's eyes began to fill with tears. But there's something about the love of Jesus that could find you no matter what stage of life you are at. His love and grace and forgiveness is still powerful. It can make a miracle of any mess. I had gotten into a fight with an old buddy of mine that for once in my life I didn't start. He pushed me to the ground and was sitting on top of me. I happened to look to my left, and there was something on the ground. As I looked a little closer, I noticed the paper had words on it which said, "Jesus saves, and at his name chains are broken and demons flee." I had known some things about Jesus. Growing up in the South, we went to church sometimes, and I heard people talk about Jesus and how he saves from sin and all the things that people say about Jesus, but I never really got it. But at that moment, my so-called friend had just pulled out a knife and was getting ready to slit my throat. Out of nowhere, I heard my voice say, "Jesus, save me." Then out of nowhere, I heard sirens in the distance. My attacker dropped the knife and took off running. I could hear the police catching up to him and then putting handcuffs on him. That night when I was home in my bed, I said to God, "I don't know if that was you, but if it was, I need to change my life. I'm so sick of being angry and hurt by my past. I need someone to help me through it, and if that someone is you, I'm yours." The next day I woke up with a peace that I could not understand. And Sunday of that week I found a local church, and a month later I was baptized, and a year after that I was in ministry. I'm 76 years old now, and I'm a living witness that Jesus changes lives. Whatever you and Florence are going through, Clayton, he can handle it. If you would just give him a chance, he will love you more than you could ever know, and he wants to change your life. If he can turn an ex-convict into a preacher, he can do anything, including handle your job situation and your PTSD. Without saying another word, Revzer Dennis drove me home in silence. My mind was reeling from the story he told. Could Jesus really do that? Could he really turn our situation around and do something good and worthwhile? I didn't tell Florence about my conversation with Revzer Dennis. I had a lot to think over. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the familiar feeling of terror came over me, a paralyzing fear that was getting ready to swallow me up any minute. My heart began to pound. I couldn't get a breath in, my body began to convulse off my bed, and I was shaking uncontrollably. In the midst of my days of having panic attacks, somewhere in my deepest darkness, I remembered Revzer Dennis's story. Despite the invisible hand at my throat, threatening to choke and drain the life out of me, I managed to whisper, "Jesus, save me." As if from out of nowhere, I saw white lights surround my bed, and a peace that I had never felt before in my life came over me. All my limbs relaxed. My mind was at ease. I stopped shaking and relaxed. The feeling was unfamiliar but common. I'm sure it was a peace that could only come from someplace not of this world filled my senses. It was as if God Himself was wrapping me in His arms. I felt such love and indescribable joy overtake every part of my body, and instinctively somewhere inside me, I knew that my life would never be the same again. Miraculously, through this particular attack, my wife stayed asleep. It was like God wanted me to know that He and He alone would get me through this. And although my wife loves me with her human love, it did not compare to the love I felt from Jesus. I felt this peace like it came from the divine, and it was the kind of peace that nobody could give or take away from me. The next time I saw Florence, I told her about my experience with Reverend Dennis and what happened the night before. She tried to be supportive, but I knew she was skeptical. "Honey, I'm so glad you were able to get through your attack," she said. "You're getting stronger and able to handle more. That's why it's not affecting you so much." That was when, no matter how much she loved me, I knew that Florence would not understand my experience. Florence would have to have an experience for herself to truly understand what I meant. We went to church that Sunday. I went because I was searching for more about Jesus, and Florence went because I wanted to go. When Reverend Dennis spoke, it was like he was speaking right to me and my wife. He spoke about things that I had never even told him I was thinking. Throughout the sermon, I felt a tug on my heart, and when the sermon was over, I knew I had to surrender my life to Jesus Christ. Throughout the sermon, I was praying for Florence as well, that one day she would surrender her life to Christ. After the sermon, to my delight, when I got up to go down to the altar, my wife was following me with tears streaming down her face. "You are right," she whispered. "You were right about everything. Jesus is real, and He did help you through that panic attack. Will you forgive me for not believing you?" Of course. I smiled and I hugged her, and we both made that life-changing decision together. 2 weeks later, as a public confession of our faith, we both were baptized. Our new life with Christ had begun. When Florence agreed to be my wife and we got married at the time, I thought that was the best day of my life. But the day my wife and I accepted Jesus Christ as our Savior and Lord, and the day we got baptized and made a public declaration that we would both follow Him for the rest of our lives, was truly the best day on this earth that we had ever experienced.